Again, incredible quarter so far in terms of earnings reports. And we still have some more to go, but signs would point towards that continuing from here. And we kick off jobs week here this week, and just right after a Fed decision. And we're also we feel we have to share an earnings season update, and you'll see why as we get a little bit further into it. Although there's only a few things to cover here this week, they are pretty big things and things that are certainly moving the markets. And so we'll kind of share what's going on here this week, what has led to some of the changes we've seen in the market, and what that has all transpired to. I'm Brandon Steele, financial advisor with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue. And our goal is to leave you feeling more empowered each week and share with you some of the data, the news, the stories we're watching here, what is truly shaping markets. And again, this week is certainly a good example of that. There's been a couple very, very strong days here this week that has kicked off August on a fast start. The primary part of that may be earnings, and I'll cover that here in a little bit. But before I do, we also kick off jobs week. So this week we have job openings, which came out yesterday on Tuesday. Shows that we had 7.4 million job openings, and it came down slightly from last report. So it's just a slight decrease in the job openings number here from the last report. Just yesterday on Wednesday, we had ADP employment report come out. That shows that we added 44,000 jobs. This was slightly below expectations. But of course, be sure to tune in next week, because tomorrow, as usual, we get the employment report, the unemployment rate, but we also get inflation next week on Wednesday. So that's going to be important. That might kind of drive what I'm about to share on in terms of what's been happening in the markets and whether that continues. But before we break for today, probably the biggest thing I wanted to cover is kind of a quick-ish update on earnings. We are not fully through the current earnings season, but we're far enough through it to get an idea of a pattern. And it is absolutely something to share, to report, and is really shaping what we're seeing in the markets here this week with a couple of really strong days. Basically, going into this quarter, the market had very high expectations for what earnings could look like. This is part of why we felt like the market has done so well, is because some of these earnings stories are just incredible. And so far this quarter, in terms of reported earnings, it is above and beyond. It's been a very incredible quarter. I'm looking at some data from last Friday, so bear with me a little bit. Since then, things have shifted. But basically, with the trends that we had seen as of last Friday, if it continues, it could mark the highest earnings growth rate we've seen in years. So not only is it quite a bit above the expectations coming into this quarter so far, it also is one of the highest, earnings growth rates that we've seen in a number of years. And to be clear, in a number of years of very, very strong market performance and earnings and all the above. So basically, this is a story that we've been watching closely, and going into this quarter, we're really paying close attention to see what this could mean for the markets moving forward, and whether we still have some legs to speak of moving forward here. And it absolutely looks to be the case. Again, incredible quarter so far in terms of earnings reports, and we still have some more to go, but signs would point towards that continuing from here. This is huge, could lead to significantly more opportunity here for the market through the end of the year. But the other thing that I think the market is paying very close attention to is, let's call it inflation, but the Fed. And next Wednesday, we do have inflation data coming out. So once we get that number, I think that really will tell us kind of where we do go from here. It's important to note that the Fed does not meet again in August, and so they don't meet again until September. So in other words, if earnings continue to be strong, if inflation at least is not a huge surprise one way or the other, and we don't hear anything alarming out of the regularly scheduled Fed program, then there's not really a significant risk event, at least foreseeable risk event on the horizon until probably September or so. So all that is to say, incredible earnings. It has led to a significant couple of days in market performance, and big question is, will that remain? And I think the earnings story the inflation story next week may give us an idea of what we can expect from here. I hope that's helpful. Certainly something to continue to keep an eye on as this earnings story unfolds, but it is a very strong sign for markets and what could continue from here, at least in the shorter run as we kind of get towards fall. So be sure to tune in next week. Again, next week we have employment report, we have the unemployment rate, That all comes out tomorrow, and then we will also be covering that big story of inflation and, seeing what that means in terms of market movement from there. In the meantime, have a great upcoming weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday at 3.